There's a moment in every public romance when the timeline gets noisy. The smiles look permanent, the quotes sound like vows, and suddenly, the internet decides it can see the future. That's where Jennifer Hudson and Common seemed to land. A story that looked like it was building toward forever. He spoke about partnership like a man who had finally learned the word home. She flashed that steel and sunshine focus that moves careers, rooms, and apparently hearts. And then the commentary chorus started. Whispers, theories, clips replayed at the speed of gossip. Some said wedding bells, others swore they spotted cracks from a single glance. That split screen, certainty versus speculation, is exactly where this story gets interesting. Start with what made people believe. There was a daytime moment that felt like a chapter title. A simple conversation, a careful question, and an answer that didn't dodge. Common didn't bury the lead. He practically framed it. If you ever wanted to see a guarded artist let the guard down just enough to confirm the obvious, that was the clip. It wasn't fireworks, it was comfort. And sometimes, comfort is the loudest confession of all. For fans, that became a receipt you could hold up when the rumor wind got noisy. You didn't need to be an expert to read what was on his face. But the line between soft launch and full announcement wasn't just how he said it was how they kept showing up afterwards. Little public moments, easy smiles, the kind of body language that doesn't try to perform chemistry because it doesn't have to. When you've been online long enough, you learn the difference between a pair that poses and a pair that exhales. Theirs felt like the second. And that's when the narrative took on a bigger shape. Not just dating, not just vibing, but a possible long game. People started using words like settled, centered, ready. In a culture that loves spectacle, the most convincing thing can be how unspectacular the love looks. Music cemented the vibe. Collaborating is its own kind of intimacy because it's hard to fake creative ease. You can stage a photo. You can stage an event. You can't stage a track that breathes. When a verse and a vocal feel like they've been sitting in the same room long before the microphones turned on, listeners hear it. Suddenly, the playlist wasn't just about cadence or hooks. It was proof. Fans don't always trust statements, but they will trust a song that lands. And this one landed. If you want to understand why people started thinking long-term, you only had to hit play. Here's where the tension gets real. Common has spoken before about the rush at the beginning of love, the high of the first chapter, how easy it is to fall for the honeymoon and then lose footing when the glow gives way to the grind. It's rare to hear someone famous name that out loud, but he did. He called it what many feel and few admit, being hooked on the spark. That honesty matters because it's the thread people pull when they try to predict the next act. Has the pattern changed, or did the language just get better? That's a fair question. Growth can sound exactly like a promise. The difference is whether the actions stay boring and steady after the applause fades. The internet, of course, doesn't wait for proof. It doesn't even require it. One clip circulates with the speed of a rumor. A caption leans dramatic because subtlety doesn't get clicks. And suddenly viewers who weren't in the room are convinced they can diagnose a relationship from a single look. You know the drill. A glance becomes tension. A quiet moment becomes trouble. A long day becomes they're done. At the same time, because the algorithm feeds on contradiction, someone else posts that a proposal is imminent. This is how the modern gossip machine works. Two competing narratives race side by side, and both get engagement. The truth is not required to trend. Momentum is. But then, life throws in a moment you can't storyboard. A stray ball flies courtside, Glasses go tumbling, faces wince, and all that polish is replaced by something human and unedited. For 30 seconds, the entire internet stops arguing about tone and starts watching two people caught in a tiny, chaotic accident. They regroup, they breathe, they carry on. No PR copy, no curated photo, just a glitch in the night that reminds you that despite the headlines, these are two people navigating a public life in real time. Ironically, it's the unscripted moments that make relationships feel most real because there's no camera-friendly choice to make, only the reflex to check in and keep going. To understand why this romance hits so many nerves, you have to open the previous chapter's file. Respectfully, Common's history includes a list of brilliant, high-achieving women. That says something about his taste, his proximity, and probably his wiring. He gravitates towards strong forces. The public reads patterns like tarot. If you dated a constellation of stars, you must be a comet. But a resume doesn't prove a destiny. What it does provide is context for why fans, fair or not, watch the current story with one eyebrow raised. When someone you've dated says the ending wasn't mutual, it sticks in the conversation, especially if you've already admitted you used to chase the first rush more than the long game. None of this is a verdict. It's a reminder that people remember what you tell them about yourself. Now flip the lens. Jennifer is not a footnote in anyone's narrative. She's a headliner with hardware. That matters here because when you've moved through storms and still built a legacy, your definition of ready is going to be earned, not borrowed. Past experience shapes pacing. Boundaries don't appear out of thin air. They're built from whatever you had to survive last time. So when the rumor pages toss around ideas about proposals or timelines or hesitations, they forget the most important rule. The most successful people are often the most cautious about what they can't control. It's not coldness, it's wisdom with receipts. There's also the pressure cooker effect of fame. Love is already hard. Love under a spotlight is a pressure test. Regular couples get to argue in a kitchen and then order takeout. Public couples argue in headlines, and the takeout becomes a picture. Privacy is not just comfort in that world, it's survival. The moment you begin protecting your peace more than your press, people accuse you of hiding something. In reality, you may just be choosing the quiet route because quiet is where real conversations can happen without the world trying to referee. That brings us to the present tense, where the simplest facts still look straightforward. They've shown up together, worked together, and spoken about each other with the kind of ease that doesn't feel manufactured. Mainstream outlets continue to describe them as a couple. The rest is noise. Cheating claims, secret feuds, whispered theories about this or that. Those live in the chat rooms and comment sections designed to keep a story alive even when there's nothing new to say. If those claims had solid evidence, it would have surfaced in more than a caption. In the absence of that, you're left with what you can verify. The work, the words, the visible rhythm of two busy people still orbiting the same center. And yet, anyone who has loved for real knows the part that's hardest isn't proving you're in love. It's staying in love when the story gets quiet. Honeymoons end. Headlines fade. The skill is not in the declaration, it's in the daily. Real partnership requires a kind of repetition that the internet can't monetize. Showing up when it's unglamorous, speaking gently when you're tired, fixing little problems before they turn into big ones, remembering to laugh when life gets absurd. That's the boring brilliance of peace, and it's why true growth looks small from the outside. A ring makes a beautiful photo, but routines make a life.
People will ask the binary question forever. Is he the man who changed, or the man who can't help repeating himself?
The answer isn't found in slogans, it's found in habits. If you want to test more reliable than Twitter threads, look for these tells. Is the calendar getting rearranged to make space, not excuses? Do career moves feel collaborative rather than competitive? When schedules clash, does one person always get the comfortable choice while the other eats the compromise? Those are the markers of long-term energy. They're not flashy, but they're faithful. And in a culture trained to chase the loudest moment, faithfulness is so quiet it's almost rebellious. Zoom out and see the bigger picture. Two artists with long careers are trying to write a new kind of chapter, in public, with more eyes than any private relationship should ever have. If they pull it off, it won't be because they crafted the perfect answer on a couch or posted the perfect couples photo. It'll be because they protected the part the audience doesn't get to see. That's the paradox of famous love. The only way to keep it real is to keep most of it off stage. Fans don't always like that, but it's the only way the story stays theirs. Of course, the rumor machine isn't going to power down. It can't. It's designed to run on scraps. One week the talk will be, they're drifting. The next week, they're picking venues. Neither claim requires proof to travel. That's why you and I keep a simple rule. We check the receipts and hold the rest lightly. The receipts say they've called each other something more than a fling, that the creative chemistry is genuine, and that public life hasn't scared them into hiding. If a future step comes, a ring, a date, a quiet announcement, you won't need a whisper network to tell you. You'll see it. It will be obvious.
There's something else worth saying here, because it gets lost in the noise.
Jennifer Hudson and Common are both more than their relationship. She carries a voice that can move a room to stillness and a resume that comes with its own acronym. He carries decades of verses, reinventions, and a reputation for care with language. Whatever happens between them, that doesn't change. A great relationship is never meant to eclipse the people inside it. It's meant to amplify them. If this is the one that does that, beautiful. If it isn't, the work they do in the world remains. That's not a consolation prize. That's perspective. And if you're wondering what the most honest ending to this story is right now, here it is, a question mark. Not the cheap kind meant to bait you into a comment war, but the respectful kind. The kind that recognizes real life takes time and doesn't always give answers on our schedule. A question mark is uncomfortable because it denies the audience closure. But it's also the most loving punctuation you can offer two people who are figuring it out. It leaves room for growth. It leaves room for change. It leaves room for the possibility that this quiet, steady version of love outlasts the loud version the internet keeps trying to script. If you take nothing else from all this, take the test I keep coming back to. Does this relationship make both of them more themselves? When you watch their interviews, hear the music, see the little unguarded moments, do you notice more calm, more focus, more soft? Do you see the edges smoothing in a good way, the posture shifting from prove to be? That's the real metric, and you can't fake it for long. If the answer keeps being yes, the rest will write itself over time. If the answer turns into not quite, you'll see that too, without a single messy thread. So where does that leave us tonight? With a love story that shows more receipts than red flags, more rhythm than drama, more present tense than past tense. With a pair who have learned how to speak about each other carefully in a world that begs for careless takes. With a path that might lead to rings and vows, or might not. And either way, it still counts as growth. We don't need to manufacture villains to make it compelling. The real tension is far better than any rumor. Can two public people keep choosing each other when the world is watching from the rafters? If they can, that's not just romantic. It's rare.
And maybe that's why this one keeps you watching.
Not because you crave a twist, but because you recognize the courage it takes to do ordinary love in an extraordinary spotlight. No stunt, no headline, no overcooked theory can outshine the simple, stubborn act of choosing the same person tomorrow. If that's the story we're seeing, then the ending isn't a period or an exclamation point. It's another quiet day on the same page, which, when you think about it, is the most powerful sentence love ever writes. But don't mistake quiet for boring. Quiet is the sound of two busy lives lining up on purpose. Quiet is calendar math that favors us. Quiet is inside jokes that keep you steady when outside voices get loud. That's how you turn momentum into meaning. That's how you turn a warm moment on a couch or a clean 4-bar exchange on a record into a life. It's not glamorous. It's grown. So here's the close, honest, and simple. Right now, the only credible storyline is the one built on what we can see and what they've actually said. A partnership with history, chemistry, and enough self-awareness to name old patterns while reaching for better ones. Everything else? Static. If a new chapter gets written, we'll read it when it's published, not when it's rumored. Until then, hold the receipts, skip the noise, and let the love be what it is. Two people finding their way, one ordinary day after another. And if you stayed with me this long, you already know the move. Keep your eyes on what's real, your ears tuned to the tracks that don't lie, and your heart open to the possibility that growth, quiet, consistent, unglamorous growth, is the most dramatic plot twist of all. Because when love stops needing an audience, that's when it starts to last.